The universe should not be this quiet. With trillions of planets spinning through the dark, with galaxies packed like cities of light, with worlds that mirror our own in size, chemistry, and possibility, silence should be impossible. And yet, here we are, drifting through a cosmic crowd that refuses to make a sound. We listen for signals that never arrive, for visitors that never descend, for even the faintest acknowledgement that intelligence blooms elsewhere. But nothing answers, nothing even stirs. And so a strange unease begins to grow beneath the wonder, like a shadow forming behind a candle. Because the question we inherited, where are the aliens, may have always been too small for the universe we inhabit. Perhaps the deeper truth is not that the cosmos is empty, but that it is indifferent. Perhaps the silence is not the absence of voices, but the presence of something we were never meant to hear. Civilizations may crowd the stars like grains of dust, each one burning, rising, vanishing, while Earth remains unnoticed, a whisper swallowed by an ocean of greater concerns. But that leaves us with a far more unsettling thought. If the universe is full, then why does no one speak? The universe was never meant to be quiet. From the moment it burst into existence, it carried within it the seeds of complexity, the raw ingredients of life, the restless chemistry of becoming. Hydrogen gathered, fused, and transformed into heavier elements. Dust collapsed into stars, stars sculpted planets, and planets, billions upon billions of them, waited for something to awaken on their surfaces. It was not a rare miracle, it was a mathematical certainty. For in a cosmos with 2 trillion galaxies, each holding hundreds of billions of stars, the idea of life being confined to a single world is not humble. It is absurd. Yet we cling to the possibility that we are alone, because silence deceives us, because emptiness feels louder than presence, because we mistake the absence of greeting for the absence of neighbors. But numbers tell another story entirely, one that pushes against the boundaries of comfort and certainty. Consider a single galaxy, our Milky Way, a modest spiral drifting among giants. It contains more stars than every human who has ever lived, combined and multiplied 1,000-fold. And around those stars, planets orbit with a patience that dwarfs human history. For decades, scientists believed planets were uncommon, fragile accidents of celestial coincidence. But as telescopes sharpened and detection methods matured, the truth emerged like a rising tide. Planets are not rare. They are the universe's default behavior. Every star is a garden of worlds. Every solar system is a lottery with millions of winning tickets. And among these worlds, a significant fraction falls into the temperate zone, where liquid water can flow, where molecules can meet, where chemistry can ignite possibility. This zone is not a narrow path. It is a broad stage upon which nature rehearses life again and again. Life does not require perfection. It only needs opportunity. And opportunity in the universe is endless. Carbon binds with stubborn eagerness. Water dissolves and transports. Molecules assemble, break, and assemble again. Matter is not passive, it is restless, it seeks patterns, it seeks stability, it seeks the next step in a long chain of becoming. And so life emerges not against the odds, but because the odds are overwhelmingly in its favor. It may take 1,000,000 years or 1,000,000,000, but time is abundant, and the universe does not rush. It waits for stars to burn, for planets to cool, for atmospheres to settle. And when the conditions align, life appears like a whisper finding its voice. That is the chemistry of inevitability. That is the quiet confidence of cosmic evolution. But if life is inevitable, what of intelligence? What of beings capable of thought, reflection, communication? Here the probabilities become more complex, yet still they lean toward abundance. Intelligence is not a single path, it is a branching forest. It arises in octopuses, elephants, ravens, primates, and these are only examples from a single world. Multiply that by billions of potentially habitable planets, each with unique environments, unique pressures, unique evolutionary histories. Somewhere, on some world, eyes must open, minds must awaken, curiosity must be born. It is not hope, it is statistics. And statistics do not lie. The Drake equation, that haunting formula carved into the history of our search for cosmic company, was never meant to provide an exact number. It was meant to reveal how unreasonable loneliness truly is. With each new discovery, exoplanets, organic molecules drifting in nebulae, water on moons, extremophiles thriving in Earth's harshest corners, the parameters of the equation tilt further toward a crowded universe. Every refinement brings the same whisper: life should be everywhere. Intelligence should not be a rare jewel hidden in the cosmic sand. It should be a common flame scattered across the night, and yet the night remains still, or seems to. Perhaps the silence persists because we misunderstand its nature. We expect civilizations to shine brightly, to announce themselves with radio waves, megastructures, grand signatures of engineering. But what if intelligence does not behave like we do? What if communication is not a priority for those who've endured longer than we have existed? For now, though, we step back into the realm of science, into the reasoning that built our expectation. Because expectation is the heart of this act, and in the sense that, by all logic, the universe should be alive. Look at Earth's own history. Life arose almost as soon as conditions stabilized, within a geological blink after the planet cooled. That speed hints at inevitability. It suggests that when chemistry is given even a narrow opportunity, life rushes in like water finding the lowest point. And once life begins, evolution does the rest, exploring possibilities with relentless creativity. Over billions of years, it produced creatures capable of sensing light, navigating oceans, soaring through skies. It produced consciousness, not because it was aiming for it, but because complexity is a natural consequence of time. Given enough time, enough trials, enough mutations and pressures, awareness emerges. If it happened here, it can happen anywhere. If it happened once, it should happen countless times. The universe is not static, it evolves. Stars are born and die, galaxies collide, elements mix and scatter. And through this endless churn, life may arise countless times, in countless forms, under countless suns. Some civilizations might flicker briefly, extinguished by catastrophe. Others might flourish for millions of years, reaching levels of understanding we cannot imagine. Still others may retreat, isolate, transcend, or dissolve into states of being unrecognizable to us. But the point remains, intelligence should not be a lonely accident. It should be a statistical chorus. And yet, as we peer into the night, the cosmos does not greet us. We detect exoplanets by the dimming of starlight, but we do not hear their voices. We analyze atmospheres for biosignatures, but none yet sing with certainty. We listen for radio waves, but only the static of our own limitations answers back. The universe behaves as though it were empty, even while the numbers insist it is full. This tension, this contradiction, creates a strange emotional gravity. Awe pulls us forward. Doubt pulls us back. Curiosity holds us in place. Something feels off, as though the universe is keeping a secret, but secrets imply someone is there to keep them. And that thought alone reshapes the silence. Maybe we are like children standing in a vast city we cannot yet perceive. The lights are there, but too distant to see. The voices are speaking, but on frequencies we have not learned to hear. Or perhaps civilizations are separated not by space, but by time, rising and falling like stars, rarely overlapping. This is possible, but even then, with trillions of worlds and billions of years, the odds remain staggering. Life should be everywhere. Mind should be everywhere. The universe should feel alive. And as this realization deepens, another thought takes root, subtle and unsettling. If life is inevitable, then intelligence should not merely exist. It should be common, widespread, almost unavoidable. Cosmic evolution does not shy away from complexity, it tends toward it. Civilizations should bloom like constellations, brief or long-lived, visible or hidden, primitive or transcendent. But they should be there, not one or two, not a handful, but thousands, millions. Enough to fill the galaxy with quiet motion, with distant awareness, with the soft hum of minds contemplating their own skies. So why don't we see them? Why don't we hear them? Why does Earth feel like a small island surrounded by an ocean that refuses to reveal its shores? The mathematics insists we are not special. The chemistry insists we are not unique. The probabilities insist we are not alone. And yet every night the sky remains unspeaking, as if holding its breath, which leads us to the threshold of a deeper mystery, one that shifts the question entirely. Loneliness may never have been the point. The real question is not whether life exists elsewhere, but why that life remains distant, uninterested, or silent. A universe filled with civilization should feel crowded. It should feel alive, but it doesn't. And that dissonance cracks open a doorway into something stranger, something more troubling, something that pulls us into the story ahead. Because if life is inevitable, intelligence should be everywhere. Silence has followed humanity longer than memory. Long before telescopes pierced the sky, long before equations predicted countless worlds, we looked upward and wondered who might be looking back. Ancient philosophers imagined celestial beings carved from fire. Medieval scholars pictured layered heavens populated with minds greater than ours. Even when science replaced myth with measurement, the expectation remained. The cosmos must be filled with voices. How could it not be? The night sky is too vast, too bright, too crowded to belong solely to us. And yet through every age, through every refinement of our understanding, one thing never changed. The sky did not answer. It offered beauty, yes, wonder, certainly, but never acknowledgement, never recognition. It behaved like a mirror made of stars, reflecting our questions but returning no replies. And as centuries unfolded, that silence began to feel less like mystery and more like indifference. When Enrico Fermi asked the question, "Where is everybody?" he was not doubting the existence of life. He was doubting the coherence of the universe that presented itself to us, because by the time he asked it, our understanding had matured. We knew the Milky Way alone was ancient enough to host civilizations millions of years older than us. We knew the speed at which life arose on Earth suggested inevitability elsewhere. We knew that if a single species anywhere in the galaxy had mastered interstellar travel, even slowly, They could have crossed the entire galaxy long before humans learned to walk upright. The expectation was straightforward. The universe should be waving at us. And yet it didn't, not even once. As radio telescopes emerged in the 20th century, humanity listened with growing anticipation. SETI pointed its ears toward promising stars, searching for the faint hum of intelligence. The early days were electric with possibility. Each new sweep of the sky felt like leaning closer to a crowded room, waiting for someone, anyone, to whisper back. But the whispers never came. We detected pulsars, quasars, the heartbeat of galaxies, but no intentional signal, no constructed pattern, no cosmic greeting card drifting across the void. Only silence, deep and uninterrupted. The more we listened, the more unnatural that silence became. Because nature is rarely quiet. Stars roar with fusion. Nebulae glow with radiation. Planets crackle with magnetic storms. Even empty space trembles with fluctuations. Yet intelligence, if it exists, leaves no trace of its breath. At first, the silence felt like a puzzle. But puzzles have answers. They invite resolution. This silence did not. It resisted interpretation as though it belonged to something deeper than ignorance or distance. It felt deliberate, not hostile, not protective, simply indifferent, as if the universe had noticed us, then looked away. And that thought, subtle as it is, carries a weight that presses on the human spirit, because it forces us to confront not the possibility that we are alone, but the possibility that our presence is irrelevant. Physics does not soothe this discomfort, it sharpens it. Consider the speed of light, the cosmic speed limit that governs how fast information can travel. Even at that ultimate velocity, signals sent to nearby stars take years to arrive. But this limitation alone cannot explain the silence. Civilizations far older than us would have overcome such barriers with patience, persistence, and technologies we can barely outline in theory. And even without interstellar travel, a single deliberate transmission would eventually cross our path. Yet none have. Our antennas remain empty. Our data streams remain barren. The laws of physics do not forbid communication. They simply demand time. And the universe has had more than enough of that. Evolutionary reasoning deepens the paradox further. Intelligence arose on Earth not as a miracle, but as a result of pressures that reward complexity, cooperation, memory, and foresight. These pressures are not unique to Earth. They occur wherever environments change, resources fluctuate, and organisms compete. If intelligence emerges here, it should emerge elsewhere. And if technology follows intelligence, then countless worlds should have reached skies of their own. Their curiosity should mirror ours. Their questions should echo ours. Their desire to know if they are alone should push them outward, upward, beyond. And yet the silence persists, unwavering. It behaves not like an accident, but like a pattern. Sociological reasoning creates even sharper tension. Civilizations vary just as species do. Some may be isolationist, some expansive, some philosophical, some indifferent. But among millions, diversity should ensure that at least one chooses to reach out. At least one chooses to signal. At least one chooses to explore. The idea that every civilization across billions of years, across billions of worlds, unanimously decides not to communicate strains logic. It suggests coordination. It suggests uniformity. It suggests an underlying reason shared across minds we have never met. And that reason feels distant, cold, and unsettling. Some have suggested that civilizations self-destruct before they reach cosmic maturity. A sobering thought, but insufficient. Even if most perish, not all will. Evolution does not select only for fragility. It also selects for endurance. And given the number of planets, even a tiny survival rate should fill the galaxy with ancient, stable societies. We should see ruins. We should detect remnants. We should observe artifacts drifting among the stars. But we observe none. Space behaves as though intelligence has never touched it. Others imagine that civilizations hide, fearing predators in the dark. Yet hiding requires knowing others exist. Silence requires knowing others might listen. It assumes a universe where communication is dangerous. But if that were true, the first civilization to emerge, unthreatened and unknowing, would have signaled freely before learning caution. Its traces should linger still. They do not. The silence is not merely widespread, it is absolute. As humanity's instruments evolved, the silence grew heavier. The Kepler telescope revealed that Earth-like planets are common. The James Webb Space Telescope began studying atmospheres with exquisite sensitivity. Every discovery reinforced the same expectation. Life should not be rare. Intelligent life should not be scarce. And yet our place in the universe did not change. Earth remained a whisper inside a vast cathedral. And that whisper went unanswered. But there is something deeper beneath the silence, something that makes it feel intentional even without evidence of intention. It is the rhythm of absence, the consistency of it, the way it has persisted through centuries of listening, through revolutions in technology, through every upgrade in our ability to detect the faintest electromagnetic tremor. The silence does not fluctuate. It does not falter. It does not tease. It remains complete. And completeness is rarely accidental. Imagine standing at the edge of an ocean so vast you cannot see its far side. You shout into the horizon. You expect an echo, but none returns. You wait, you listen. Still nothing. Eventually you begin to wonder not whether the ocean is empty, but whether something beneath its surface is choosing not to answer. That is where humanity now stands, not at the edge of emptiness, but at the edge of indifference. We once believed the universe was made for us. Then we believed it was made for no one. Now we must consider a third possibility, that the universe is full of life that simply does not care to speak with us. Not out of malice, not out of secrecy, but because our existence does not alter theirs, because their concerns lie beyond our scale, our capabilities, our comprehension. We may be too primitive, too young, too brief to register as relevant, not alone, but unnoticed, not ignored, but unacknowledged. A civilization may pass 1,000 light years away, brilliant and ancient, and never think to look toward a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable star. And so the silence grows heavy, not because it is empty, but because it feels weighted with decision. Every unanswered signal, every quiet night, every sweep of radio static begins to sound less like nothingness and more like dismissal. The universe behaves as if the conversation has been happening without us, as if the voices are out there speaking in ways we cannot hear, on channels we have not discovered, at scales we have not imagined, and we remain outside the circle, unaware that a dialogue continues just beyond reach. This is the moment when curiosity turns into confusion, when confusion turns into unease, because silence, once it stretches too long, begins to imply intent. And intent in a universe this crowded forces us to reconsider our place within it. Are we late arrivals to a cosmic gathering, or are we the children of a universe that has already moved on? The silence does not say, but its refusal to break suddenly feels intentional. For centuries, we have imagined ourselves as explorers, scanning the cosmos with the boldness of a species ready to be discovered. But what if we are not the explorers at all? What if we are the exhibit? There is a theory whispered among astronomers and philosophers alike that reframes the great silence not as absence, nor as indifference, but as intention. It suggests that aliens do not speak to us because they choose not to, not because they lack the ability, nor because they fail to notice us, but because they treat us the way we treat fragile, uncontacted tribes, with distance, caution, and watchfulness. Suddenly, humanity becomes the animal behind glass, pacing under the soft glow of a cosmic spotlight, unaware of the eyes observing from the darkness. And that shift in perspective hits somewhere deep, somewhere fragile, somewhere we rarely let ourselves look. The zoo hypothesis begins with one simple premise. Advanced civilizations might follow ethical codes that forbid interference with young or developing species, not out of cruelty, but out of restraint. To interfere too early would stunt growth. To reveal themselves too soon would distort our culture, our choices, our destiny. They would become gods by accident, and no ethical society wishes to play God with another. So they watch instead. They wait. They let us struggle through our own mistakes, our own wars, our own technological adolescence. They let us grow the way a seed grows in the wild, slowly, painfully, without guidance, but with the possibility of becoming something real. Human history offers unsettling parallels. We have chosen non-interference countless times, on remote islands or deep jungles, encountering tribes untouched by modern civilization. We step back. We observe their rituals from afar. We take notes. We send drones instead of diplomats. We avoid exposing them to our diseases, our ideologies, our overwhelming presence. We do this not because they are unworthy, but because they are unready, because contact would destroy the very thing that makes them unique. And if humanity, with all its flaws, understands this principle, what might a civilization a million years ahead of us understand? How might they judge the impact of a single misstep? How might they calculate the consequences of a careless hello? The silence begins to take shape beneath this lens. It is not the silence of emptiness. It is the silence of study, of patience, of beings who know the weight of interference. And suddenly the universe feels less indifferent and more deliberate, less empty and more cautious, less like a desert and more like a dimly lit corridor lined with unseen observers who have agreed collectively or instinctively that we must not be disturbed. But why? What makes us so delicate, so unpredictable that contact must be avoided? The answer lies not in the stars, but in our own history. Humanity is a volatile species. We are creative but destructive, curious but fearful, expansive but insecure. We discover fire and then burn forests. We split the atom and then build weapons. We reach for the heavens even as we struggle to understand ourselves. To an advanced civilization watching from a distance, our world might resemble the early stages of a dangerous experiment, one that cannot yet be altered without risking catastrophic instability. Because a single revelation of extraterrestrial life would shake our religions, our governments, our psychology, our sense of place. Even peaceful contact could unravel everything we depend on for identity. and an ethical species would see that clearly. Another reason for avoidance may be cultural contamination. Civilizations sculpt themselves over millennia. Languages form, stories grow, philosophies deepen, technologies evolve according to internal pressures and organic needs. Introduce outside knowledge too early, and the natural trajectory collapses. Development becomes imitation, growth becomes dependency. A species loses its origin story, its identity, its authenticity. Perhaps aliens preserve us the way archivists preserve rare artifacts, untouched, unaltered, valuable not because of their power, but because of their innocence. There is also the matter of unpredictability. Humanity's brief history of encounter is filled with conquest, exploitation, and misunderstanding. When cultures collide with unequal power, the result is often tragic. If aliens learned anything from observing us, it would be this: young species are dangerous, not only to others, but to themselves. We lash out when threatened. We worship what we cannot explain. We fear what exceeds us. An advanced civilization may not fear our weapons, but they may fear triggering our instability. They may fear becoming catalysts for our self-destruction. And so the universe might choose silence not out of dismissal, but out of caution, not out of arrogance, but out of responsibility. They watch our broadcasts, decode our languages, measure our atmosphere, and study our social evolution, all without ever revealing their presence. They observe the rise and fall of nations, the flicker of hopes and fears, the slow march of scientific progress. They watch as we learn to split atoms, to map genomes, to send probes into interstellar darkness. They watch as we take our first steps onto the cosmic stage, stuttering, fragile, uncertain. They watch because they believe watching is safer than speaking. But that realization creates a strange ache, the feeling of being noticed but not acknowledged, seen but not included. It is the ache of being small not in size, but in importance. If the universe is a great civilization, we are not members of it. We are its children, its experiment, its distant curiosity. And that vulnerability sinks deeper than loneliness ever could, because loneliness is the absence of others. Vulnerability is the presence of others who remain just out of reach. Some imagine that alien observers live in hidden megastructures, cloaked behind our sun, invisible to our crude instruments. Others believe they station probes throughout the solar system, silent sentinels tracking our progress. Still others suggest that they have visited Earth in ancient times, only to withdraw when the risks of interference became clear. But perhaps the truth is simpler. They do not need to be near to observe us. They can watch from thousands of light years away, using technologies that compress space, bend information, or operate beyond our understanding. Distance is no barrier to a species that has mastered physics the way we master fire. To them, Earth may be an aquarium illuminated from the outside, its inhabitants unaware of the glass that separates them from the ocean beyond. And if this is true, then every night sky carries an unsettling implication. When we look for life, life may be looking back. When we study exoplanets, our planet may be studied in return. When we search for signals, silence itself may be the signal, a carefully chosen boundary, a soft refusal, an ethical wall meant to protect us from truths we are not ready to bear. The zoo hypothesis forces us into a rare emotional space. It is not hopeful, nor is it hopeless. It is humbling. It reminds us that Intelligence does not guarantee maturity, that curiosity does not guarantee wisdom, that youth does not guarantee value. We become the observed, not the observers, a role humanity is culturally unprepared for. We have always believed we were the ones discovering the universe. Perhaps the universe discovered us long ago and simply chose not to interrupt. And this perspective opens a final, unnerving possibility. The silence may not last forever. At some threshold, technological, ethical, or existential, the observers may step forward. They may reveal what has been hidden. They may decide that humanity has crossed the boundary from dangerous youth to stable adulthood. Or they may decide we have failed. The glass could shatter in either direction. For now, though, the silence endures. A silence not of emptiness, but of restraint. A silence not of distance, but of decision. A silence that watches, measures, and waits in the shadows of distant stars. Perhaps the universe is watching and quietly waiting. What if the universe is not silent at all? What if it is alive with signals, movements, and presences so vast, so subtle, or so advanced that we pass through them every day without noticing? For all our pride in intelligence, the human body is a narrow doorway into reality. We sense only a sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum. We hear vibrations suited for air, not vacuum. We perceive time as a line, not a landscape. We evolved to survive on a savanna, not to understand a cosmos. Our eyes were shaped to spot predators in tall grass, not civilizations woven into the quantum fabric. If aliens exist, and the math insists they do, then perhaps they are not ignoring us. Perhaps they exist in forms and frequencies far beyond the reach of our primitive senses. We are not being dismissed, we are simply unequipped. Every creature on earth lives within its own perceptual cage. A bat sees through echoes. A bee navigates in ultraviolet. A snake reads heat like a second language. None of them perceive the world as we do. None understand the human experience, even as they share the same ground we walk on. And humanity is no different. We experience reality through organs tuned to a specific evolutionary task: survival. Not truth, not totality, just survival. Our senses show us only what kept our ancestors alive. Everything else, the majority of existence, is filtered out. The universe may be crowded with beings, signals, structures, networks, or dimensions, and we perceive almost none of them, not because they hide, but because we are blind. Consider the electromagnetic spectrum, the full orchestra of cosmic light. Humans hear only a single note in that symphony. Radio waves pass through us unnoticed. Gamma rays erupt across the galaxy, unseen. Ultraviolet spheres of radiation shine brighter than stars, and we register none of it with our naked eyes. We built tools to expand our vision, but our instruments still decode only fractions of the whole. If an advanced civilization communicates using wavelengths we have not yet imagined, their messages could flow directly through our planet without leaving a trace for us to detect. Imagine trying to explain Wi-Fi to an insect crawling across a laptop. The signal is everywhere, yet meaningful to neither its senses nor its mind. The insect is not ignored. It is simply incapable of knowing what surrounds it. Now extend that metaphor to humanity. Our most powerful telescopes might be scanning the universe filled with intelligent chatter, but we are tuned to the wrong channels. We search for radio waves because that is what we would use. We look for chemical signatures because that is what our biology requires. But what of beings who communicate by manipulating gravitational waves? What of civilizations that encode knowledge through patterns in dark matter, a medium 5 times more abundant than the matter that makes us? What of minds that speak through quantum entanglement, sending messages instantly across a galaxy in ways our physics cannot yet comprehend? To them, our silence might be as invisible as theirs is to us. We assume aliens must exist in familiar forms, organisms with bodies, with senses, with intentions. But intelligence does not require shape. It does not require flesh. Over cosmic time, a civilization may shed biology entirely, transitioning into forms of existence that merge with planets, star systems, or space-time structures. A highly advanced species could become indistinguishable from the medium it lives in. Imagine a civilization that migrates into quantum substrates, where thought is encoded in probability fields. Imagine beings who exist as electromagnetic storms swirling within nebulae, or consciousness distributed across the magnetic skeleton of a galaxy. To us, such entities would appear as natural phenomena. We would catalog them as cosmic features, never realizing we were labeling civilizations as scenery. Our limitation is not only sensory, it is conceptual. Human intelligence is built atop primate instincts, tribal memory, and language designed for simple survival tasks. Our physics, brilliant as it is, may be the kindergarten version of a far larger truth. We grasp at dark matter, dark energy, extra dimensions, and the quantum vacuum without truly understanding them. And into these gaps may fit entire civilizations, not microscopic or hidden, but simply operating in layers of reality our minds are not structured to perceive. If a fourth spatial dimension threads through our universe, beings that inhabit it would slip through our world like ghosts, passing behind walls we cannot see. They could observe us as easily as we observe ants, while remaining fully outside our perceptual reach. There is a growing suspicion among physicists that space-time itself may contain computational or informational structures. If true, then the universe might function like a cosmic operating system. One advanced species could learn to modify. Their presence would be encoded not in matter, but in the rules governing matter. We would never detect them because they would be indistinguishable from the laws of physics themselves. They would not travel through the galaxy in ships. They would travel by rewriting the geometry of reality. And how does one detect a traveler who moves by altering the road beneath your feet? Even time may not be a shared experience. Humans see time as a river flowing in one direction. But quantum mechanics suggests time may be far more flexible, far more layered. A species that perceives time non-linearly could observe the entire lifespan of our civilization at once, like reading a book in a single glance. To them, our attempts at communication would be frozen fragments, too slow to engage with meaningfully. We are not ignored. We exist at the wrong temporal resolution. And so the paradox dissolves when we abandon the assumption that aliens must resemble us in perception, technology, or experience. The problem is not their silence. The problem is our blindness. A galaxy full of giants could walk past us, and we would never notice. Just as an ant would never notice the internet pulsing above its colony. The ant does not lack worth. It simply lacks the sensory and cognitive capacity to comprehend a higher order of reality. And perhaps humanity is the same, standing beneath a cosmic infrastructure so advanced it has become invisible. This possibility demands humility. It forces us to consider that intelligence is not a ladder, but a vast terrain, and we occupy only a small corner of it. We imagine ourselves near the center, but we may be closer to the beginning. The universe could teem with minds that perceive layers of reality we cannot imagine, operating with technologies that make our physics look like stick drawings in the sand. They may not choose to hide. They may not choose to reveal themselves. They simply exist in a domain we have not yet learned to see. And if this is true, then our search for extraterrestrial life becomes a search not for others, but for ourselves. For the limits we must transcend, for the senses we must expand, for the dimensions we must learn to navigate. Perhaps the next revolution in human understanding will not be the discovery of aliens, but the discovery of how little of the universe we currently perceive. We may need to reinvent perception itself before we can join a larger cosmic community. In this light, the silence becomes profound rather than empty. It does not speak of loneliness or rejection. It speaks of hidden complexity, of veiled realities, of intelligence woven into structures we mistake for void. It becomes the quiet invitation of a universe waiting for us to evolve beyond the boundaries of our own design. And so the paradox turns inward. The question is no longer, where are they? The question becomes, what are we blind to? What forms of intelligence might exist just beyond our senses, just beyond our physics, just beyond our imagination? What signals might be flowing around us even now, unnoticed only because we lack the eyes to see them, the ears to hear them, the minds to understand them? Perhaps the giants walk beside us in forms we cannot name. Perhaps the universe is vibrant with life woven into fabrics we have not yet unraveled. Perhaps the cosmos is louder than we ever imagined. Perhaps they do not ignore us. Perhaps we simply do not see them. Every species dreams of reaching the stars, but not every species survives long enough to try. Somewhere between the spark of intelligence and the mastery of a galaxy lies a narrow, treacherous passage that few may pass through. This passage has many names: evolutionary bottleneck, technological adolescence, civilizational threshold, but humanity knows it best as the Great Filter. It is the idea that somewhere on the path from primitive life to cosmic maturity, there lies an obstacle so difficult, so rare to overcome, that nearly all civilizations fail to cross it. And that failure echoes across the universe as silence. But what if the silence is not merely the result of extinction? What if advanced civilizations observe this fragile stage in others and choose caution over contact? To them, we might look like a species standing on the edge of a cliff, blindfolded, holding a torch dangerously close to our own future. Humanity exists in a paradoxical place, powerful enough to reshape worlds, yet too divided to reshape itself. We hold the energy of stars in our equations, but cannot guarantee peace among our nations. We build machines capable of transforming landscapes, but struggle to transform our patterns of conflict. We decode the genome, manipulate atoms, and probe the depths of space-time, yet we have not mastered the simplest of collective tasks: survival without self-sabotage. A civilization watching us from afar would see brilliance intertwined with volatility, creativity entangled with destruction, potential shadowed by immaturity. They might see a species that is rising, but not stable, expanding but not wise, reaching, but not ready. The Great Filter suggests that the universe might be filled with civilizations that burn brightly but briefly, extinguished by their own inventions, their own fears, their own unchecked momentum. If this pattern is common, then advanced species would treat younger ones with extreme caution. Contacting a civilization before it stabilizes could be catastrophic. A glimpse of superior technology could fuel arms races, wars, or ideological collapse. Even peaceful revelations could destabilize economies, religions, and governments. And so the safest approach, perhaps the only ethical approach, is to watch from a distance until the species proves it can pass through the dangerous thresholds on its own. Humanity stands before several of these thresholds right now. One is planetary stability. Our world trembles under the strain of rapid change, climate fluctuations, mass extinction, resource depletion. A civilization that cannot care for its home cannot be trusted with the responsibility of cosmic citizenship. To an alien observer, Earth might look like a laboratory experiment reaching an unstable phase, chemicals swirling chaotically, outcomes uncertain. They might wait to see if we can restore balance or whether we lose control entirely. Another threshold is resource management. We consume faster than we replenish. We dig, drill, burn, and extract as though abundance were a promise rather than a temporary gift. Our economic systems reward consumption, not preservation. Our technologies accelerate extraction rather than restraint. A species that does not learn sustainability early risks collapse later. And collapse, as history shows, often brings violence, entropy, fragmentation. An advanced civilization would not risk exposing itself to a species desperate for resources it cannot produce. They would wait until we learn equilibrium, until our technological capabilities match our ecological wisdom. Then comes moral development, the rarest threshold of all. Intelligence without ethics is a weapon. Knowledge without compassion is chaos. A species can build rockets and still wage war, develop medicine and still discriminate, map the brain and still fail to understand the mind. Humanity is a study in contradiction, astonishing empathy and breathtaking cruelty, cosmic curiosity and tribal fear. Aliens may watch us not with contempt, but with apprehension. They may see themselves in our struggles, remembering their own turbulent eras, or they may see warning signs, the early markers of civilizations that did not survive long enough to outgrow their impulses. Moral maturity is not measured by philosophy spoken, but by action sustained. And our actions from a cosmic vantage point may appear uncertain, inconsistent, unfinished. Technological maturity forms yet another filter, perhaps the most dangerous. Our tools grow faster than our wisdom. Artificial intelligence, genetic manipulation, nanotechnology, and quantum engineering offer incredible possibilities and existential risks. A species that gains the ability to rewrite itself or its environment without understanding long-term consequences may destroy itself unintentionally. Self-inflicted extinction might be far more common in the universe than natural disasters. A civilization that has survived these transitions would recognize the signs in others. They might see us approaching thresholds they once approached. Thresholds where even small mistakes can mean irrevocable collapse. And so they watch, not in judgment, but in caution, not in superiority, but in memory of their own fragile ascent. They observe whether humanity can navigate the chaos of adolescence without falling into the abyss that swallowed countless others. They wait to see if we can build systems that value sustainability over impulse, cooperation over division, foresight over fear. They wait to see if our consciousness can expand as quickly as our technology. They wait for proof that we can survive ourselves before we attempt to join the larger universe. From our perspective, the silence feels like abandonment, but from theirs, it may be the only path that doesn't end in catastrophe. If we are still at risk of destabilizing our own world, how much more dangerous would we be if introduced to cosmic knowledge? A species with nuclear weapons and unstable leadership is not ready for access to technologies capable of reshaping space-time. A species that struggles with empathy among its own kind is not ready to encounter beings unlike any it has ever seen. A species that cannot yet unify its planet is not ready to represent itself in a universe of civilizations. To them, silence becomes not a rejection, but a safeguard for us and for them. This interpretation carries a heavy emotional weight. It forces us to confront the possibility that we are not ignored because we are insignificant, but because we are unstable. Not because we lack value, but because we lack maturity. It places the responsibility squarely on us, demanding introspection instead of longing, development instead of expectation. It reframes the Fermi Paradox from a cosmic mystery into a mirror held up to humanity's own evolution. And the reflection is sobering. If the great filter lies ahead of us, then humanity is approaching its most dangerous century. Our choices now matter more than at any point in our history. If we succeed, we may join a community older and wiser than we can imagine. If we fail, we may join the long silence of civilizations that came before us. Aliens may be waiting for one thing only: evidence that we will not destroy ourselves the moment we are handed greater power. But there is another, quieter possibility. Perhaps the great filter is not a single event, but a series of tests woven into the journey of every intelligent species. Tests of cooperation, restraint, patience, empathy, and foresight. Tests we do not recognize as tests until we fail them. Tests that determine whether we are ready for the wider universe or destined to remain isolated by our own limitations. The silence begins to feel less like emptiness and more like expectation. Each decade of progress, each technological leap, each moral turning point becomes part of an unspoken evaluation. Humanity is writing its own cosmic resume, one action at a time. And somewhere in the hidden corners of the galaxy, civilizations far older than ours may be watching our evolution the way we watch storms forming across distant oceans, aware of their potential, aware of their danger. This shifts the weight of the paradox onto us. The question is no longer, why won't they speak to us? The question becomes, have we shown them anything worth speaking to? A species that has not yet learned to live without fear of itself is unlikely to inspire trust in others. A species that threatens its own world cannot be invited to others. A species that has not passed the filters of stability, sustainability, and morality is not ready to inherit the stars. And so we stand at the threshold trembling with potential and precariousness. The silence is not empty. It is a waiting room, a pause in a conversation that has not yet begun. Maybe we are not ignored. Maybe we are being tested. There is a final explanation, one that makes the universe feel colder than any distance, darker than any void. It suggests that the silence we hear is not confusion or indifference or caution, but fear, not ours, theirs. In this view, the cosmos is not a gathering place, not a tranquil sea filled with drifting civilizations, but a vast ancient forest at night. Every rustle is danger, every glimmer is threat. Every creature moves with quiet, deliberate care, because in a forest this dark, one mistake can end everything. This is the essence of Liu Cixin's dark forest theory. Every civilization hides because the cost of being discovered may be extinction. And suddenly the silence becomes suffocating, not because no one speaks, but because speaking is the last thing any intelligent species would dare to do. Imagine the universe as a forest stretching without end. Every planet is a tree. Every civilization is a creature perched somewhere in the branches, watching and listening. No one knows who else lurks among the shadows or what their intentions might be. No one can afford to assume kindness. A single careless signal, a flare, a shout, a gesture could reveal a location to predators older, stronger, or more desperate. In such a place, survival depends on secrecy, safety depends on silence, and so everyone waits, everyone hides, everyone listens for hints of danger. The silence we observe from Earth is not emptiness, it is strategy. This theory does not emerge from fantasy. It emerges from sober cosmic sociology. Consider the immense time scales of the universe. Civilizations may rise and fall across millions of years. Their interests, motives, and technologies may be incomprehensible to us. If even one out of thousands chooses aggression, the consequences ripple outward. A single predatory civilization could reshape the behavior of every species it encounters, forcing them into a posture of fear and hypervigilance. Peace requires trust, but trust requires communication, and communication exposes vulnerability. In the dark forest, vulnerability is death. On Earth, life evolved under the same shadow. Most creatures hide. Many use camouflage. Some mimic silence, freezing when predators draw near. Every signal, every cry, every display is a gamble. In the ocean, whales sing across vast distances, but they do so in frequencies that shift over lifetimes, adapting to threats we barely understand. In the jungle, animals move at night with steps soft enough to be mistaken for wind. Even humans, before cities and satellites, survived by listening more than speaking, watching shadows more than horizons. Fear is ancient. It is written into biology. Why should it not also be written into the fabric of cosmic evolution? Under the dark forest model, any intelligent species must assume the worst. They do not know what others want. They do not know how others think. They do not know how advanced others might be. And because technology scales exponentially, a species only slightly ahead could possess capabilities indistinguishable from myth. A small difference in time becomes an enormous difference in power. A species 1,000 years ahead could terraform planets. A species 1,000,000 years ahead could reshape galaxies. A species 1 billion years ahead could manipulate space-time itself. If such power exists, no one would risk drawing its attention. And so civilizations dim their lights, they speak softly or not at all. They encrypt, distort, or disguise their signals. They bury their worlds under layers of decoy radiation, or they retreat into virtual domains that generate no detectable signatures. Some may abandon physical form entirely, dissolving into computational substrates that blend seamlessly with cosmic noise. Others may spread so thinly across space that they leave no trace of centralized existence. In every case, the logic remains the same. Invisibility is survival. Earth, however, did not get the memo. For over a century, we have been shouting into the void with radio waves leaking our presence in every direction. Early broadcasts are now 100 light years away, expanding like a fragile bubble. We have illuminated ourselves in the darkness. Our signals reveal our chemistry, our atmosphere, our level of technology, our emotional dramas wrapped in the static of television and radio. To a cautious civilization, this behavior would seem reckless, even suicidal. We are the loud creatures stumbling through the underbrush, unaware that the forest around us has gone silent. Perhaps the aliens do not respond because to acknowledge us is dangerous. To speak is to draw attention, and attention in a universe where predation may span light years could be lethal. Even a benign greeting could be intercepted by a third party, exposing both sender and receiver. Communication becomes a liability, not a bridge. In such a world, the safest message is no message at all. Some imagine vast predatory civilizations drifting through the galaxy, harvesting worlds or sterilizing potential threats. But the dark forest does not require monsters. It requires only uncertainty. The possibility of a predator is enough to reshape behavior on galactic scales. Even a species that seeks peace would remain silent if it believed others might not. Silence becomes the equilibrium state. The moment someone speaks, the equilibrium breaks, and someone dies to restore it. This darker interpretation also reframes our loneliness. We are not alone. We are surrounded by watchers, each holding their breath. We are not ignored. We are assessed, observed from afar by civilizations who hope we will remain quiet, because our noise increases the risk for everyone. In this view, humanity becomes not the child of the universe, but the unpredictable newcomer whose behavior could destabilize the fragile peace of silence. Our broadcasts, our probes, our attempts to contact others, all of these may be seen as dangerous flares illuminating a clearing in the forest. And flares draw eyes. The dread deepens when we consider time. If the universe contains ancient civilizations, many may have survived by eliminating younger ones that become too loud. The motives need not be cruel. Preconditions for survival might have sculpted their instincts. For them, eliminating potential threats early may be the only rational strategy. From their perspective, we are not innocent explorers. We are unknown vectors of risk. Our rapid technological growth, our internal divisions, our unfiltered signals, these might be interpreted as signs of a species unstable enough to endanger others. Yet the deepest fear of the dark forest is not predation. It is silence enforced by fear. A universe where no one speaks first, because to speak is to die. A universe where civilizations hide in the dark for eternity, trapped by the logic of survival. A universe where brilliance burns behind shuttered windows, never shared, never celebrated. A universe where trust evolves more slowly than intelligence, and cooperation requires a miracle. But dread has another side, a quiet, reflective edge. If the dark forest is real, humanity faces a choice it does not yet understand. Do we continue broadcasting, revealing ourselves with every new transmission? Or do we go silent, retreating into caution like those who came before us? Do we trust that others are peaceful? Or do we assume the universe is watching with unknown intentions? These are not merely scientific questions. They are existential ones. They force us to consider who we are and how we wish to enter the wider cosmos, with boldness, with fear, or with wisdom earned through silence. Perhaps the older civilizations already see us. Perhaps they monitor our emissions, note our progress, evaluate our risk. Perhaps they remain silent not to frighten us, but to protect themselves, and perhaps to protect us from attracting something else lurking deeper in the metaphorical shadows. Perhaps they hope we will learn restraint before it is too late. In this act, the silence becomes suffocating, intimate, alive with tension. It is no longer the silence of emptiness, but the silence of a forest full of hidden eyes. It is the quiet one, hears before a predator moves. The quiet one keeps when danger prowls just beyond perception. The quiet that carries the weight of a single warning carved across the stars. In a dark forest, no one speaks first. There is one explanation left, quieter than fear, softer than caution, older than any theory we've carved into the night. It does not terrify. It does not thrill. It does not shatter our confidence. Instead, it dissolves it. It asks us to step outside our longing, our pride, our desperate need to be noticed, and to see ourselves with the same calm, unblinking honesty that the universe sees us with. Perhaps aliens do not ignore us because we are dangerous. Perhaps they do not hide because they fear us. Perhaps they do not wait for us to mature, or listen for our signals, or judge our instability. Perhaps the truth is simpler, lighter, and far more difficult to accept. Maybe we are not worth talking to. Not yet. Not because we are worthless, but because we are early. Infants in cosmic time. A species only just learning to form questions large enough to matter. We imagine ourselves as complex, advanced, intelligent, enlightened, but these illusions crumble when held against the scale of the universe. Our mathematics barely scratches the surface of the deep structures of reality. Our understanding of consciousness is embryonic. Our ability to manage our own planet is inconsistent at best. We are tribal, emotional, distracted, and noisy, brilliant for our age, but unmistakably young. Why should a civilization millions of years older see us as peers? Why would they rush into dialogue with minds still struggling to understand themselves? From their vantage point, humanity might resemble a species mid-evolution, still shaped by ancient fears, still governed by instincts forged in scarcity and survival. Our achievements, astonishing to us, may look like the earliest attempts at language to them, the first flickers of awareness in a creature just beginning to wake. They might admire our curiosity, our creativity, the fragile beauty of our questioning, but admiration does not necessitate conversation. A gardener does not debate philosophy with seedlings. A cosmologist does not ask an ant to explain the nature of time. The gap is not one of value, but of development. And this is not an insult. It is an invitation to humility. It allows us to breathe into the possibility that alien silence is not rejection. It is patience. Humanity's greatest challenge is not that we are alone. It is that we assume importance by default. We believe we are worth noticing simply because we exist. We imagine the universe owes us an answer because we learned to ask the question. But existence is not merit. Intelligence is not mastery. Consciousness is not completion. We are a story still being written, a mind still forming, a species still climbing out of its own adolescence. We expect cosmic civilizations to treat us as equals. But what have we done to earn that place at the table? What have we built that would compel a civilization of a million years to pause and listen? Our cities glow, but only recently. Our science reaches far, but only shallowly. Our philosophies stretch wide, but not deeply enough to unify us. We wage wars, then write poetry about the ruins. We solve diseases, then fracture over ideas. We dream of exploring galaxies while struggling to understand each other. If aliens observe us, they may see potential, but potential is only the promise of value, not its fulfillment. And perhaps the greatest barrier to contact is not our fragility or our danger, but our incompleteness. We are minds mid-formation. We are consciousness in rehearsal. We are beings learning to navigate awareness as a child learns to balance on shaking legs. A conversation between us and a civilization of cosmic maturity would be no conversation at all. Their questions would drown us. Their answers would overwhelm us. Their perspective would shred the framework of our understanding. There would be no language capable of bridging that gulf, not yet. So they wait. They wait not for us to stop fighting or to gain wisdom or to survive our adolescence. Though these things matter, they wait for something deeper, for our minds to widen enough that a conversation becomes possible, for our sense of self to stretch beyond tribal boundaries, for our curiosity to mature into comprehension, for our emotions to settle into coherence, for our consciousness to evolve toward depth, not just breadth. They wait for us to become interesting, in the cosmic sense. Interesting not as a curiosity, but as a fellow mind, capable of seeing, understanding, and responding meaningfully. This is the philosophy of cosmic humility. It does not diminish humanity. It clarifies us. We are not failures. We are beginners. We are not ignored. We are unnoticed. In the same way a mountain does not ignore a river, or a star does not ignore the planet orbiting it. The mountain and river, the star and planet, exist in different states of being. Their interaction is shaped not by intention, but by scale. And scale, not physical but cognitive, is the real frontier of the Fermi Paradox. If there are civilizations capable of engineering stars or sculpting space-time, they may view communication at our level the way we view teaching quantum physics to a toddler. It is not cruelty. It is simply not time. But what does time mean to a species older than our continents, older than our atmosphere, older than our earliest ancestors? They may measure progress not in centuries, but in epochs. They may view humanity as a civilization in prehistory, still shaping its identity, still discovering its boundaries. For them, our entire recorded past might be the preface to a story yet to begin. And here lies the quiet beauty of this explanation. Alien silence becomes encouragement, not a door closed, but a horizon unfulfilled. Their absence becomes a challenge, not to find them, but to become worthy of being found. This realization turns inward. It shifts the focus from galactic mystery to human potential. The question is no longer, why don't they speak to us? The question becomes, what do we need to become for them to speak? What transformations must we undergo intellectually, ethically, spiritually, before we resonate on frequencies that interest cosmic minds? Perhaps we must learn to manage our planet without tearing it apart. Perhaps we must learn to cooperate without coercion. Perhaps we must learn to build without destroying. Perhaps we must evolve not upward, but inward, because the intelligence required to contact others is far less than the intelligence required to understand them. The silence is not punishment. It is space. Space for us to grow into something greater, The universe does not shun us, it simply continues on its path while we attempt to learn ours. And as we mature, our loneliness may transform into something else: readiness. The day may come when our art, our science, our unity, our wisdom reach a level that signals, not in radio waves, but in essence, that humanity has become a mind worth engaging. Until then, the silence teaches us something invaluable. Humility can be expansive. It makes room inside the self for what may eventually fill it. It opens the mind to questions that reshape identity. It softens the ego so wonder can grow in its place. Silence becomes a mentor, not an emptiness. Absence becomes guidance, not rejection. And the cosmos becomes less a distant audience and more a patient observer. Perhaps we are not ignored because we are insignificant. Perhaps we are ignored because we have not yet discovered our significance. And maybe that is the most hopeful truth of all. Perhaps the universe is waiting for us to become something more. In the beginning, the silence felt like an accusation. A crowded universe should not be this quiet. We looked upward, expecting echoes, greetings, signs that someone else was awake. But the sky remained still, and we mistook that stillness for loneliness. Now, after walking through fear, possibility, vulnerability, and humility, the silence feels different. It feels shaped, deliberate, meaningful. Not because it tells us who the others are, but because it reveals who we are becoming. Perhaps aliens hide because they fear the dark. Perhaps they watch because we are not yet ready. Perhaps they exist beyond our senses or our reach or our imagination. Or perhaps they simply have better things to do than speak with a young species, still learning to understand itself. The reasons vary, but the message is the same. The silence is not the universe turning its back. It is the universe reminding us that growth precedes connection, that understanding must rise before communication, that before we search for others, we must learn to become someone worth finding. And so Earth, small and bright in the vast cosmic forest, is not abandoned. It is invited to mature, invited to expand, invited to evolve into a civilization capable of hearing more than its own echoes, a species capable of seeing beyond its own reflections, a mind large enough to join other minds without fear, without desperation, without illusion. The quiet between stars is not a barrier. It is a horizon, a question stretching across the night, reshaping us simply by being asked. We begin with a paradox, a universe overflowing with possibility, speaking in whispers too faint for us to recognize. We end with a gentle truth. Silence is not emptiness, it is potential waiting for its moment. The universe may ignore us today, but tomorrow we may finally be ready to listen